There aren't, but just for your attention, Schedule A for the off-road vehicle bylaw was not added in your package, but it was dropped off on your desk, so that's what this is for, Schedule A.
This is addition.
Oh, yeah. K1 was on there, but we'll delete it because we didn't get the information. Okay? Yeah. Sorry, Ken?
There is none.
Okay, Ken has made a motion to move the approval of the agenda.
There is none.
Ken already did.
Why, did you do that?
Yeah,
There is none.
sorry, Morris, he did. Okay, discussion?
It was right.
Call for the question, those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Confirmation of the minutes of June the 6th meeting, and that was on pages 1 to 6, are the errors or omissions? Steve?
I'll move the minutes of June 6th as presented, Mr. Chairman.
Any discussion? Call for the question, those in favor, those opposed, carried. Thank you. Okay, let's move down to reports. E1, pages 7 to 20, financial summary report from January to April of 2019.
Morning, Council.
Marty?
So on page 7 is the financial summary for the period of January to April of 2019. I recognize this is getting to you a little bit later than normal. We did have it prepared earlier, but just due to some circumstances, we're presenting it now. So I'm not gonna go through every page, obviously. I know you guys probably spent lots of time late nights reading it, so I will summarize for you, and if you have any questions for me. So at this time, as of April 2019, we're projecting a surplus of approximately $154,000. So although some of the surplus is related to revenues generated through penalties and investment interest, and some in planning and development, a lot of the surplus balance we're looking at is due to some organizational changes and restructuring, as well as some initiatives that we should be seeing at the end of 2019. So that's where some of that is coming from at this time. I do believe that the surplus is somewhat conservative, possibly, for the end of the year, but until we get through the busiest season and the summer, the construction season, and a lot of our capital projects and such are completed, I think it's a fair estimate for where we're at right now. So again, I'll come back, all of the departments are reassessed and evaluated throughout the year, and in the next quarter we'll get closer to seeing where things are at there. So we do have a lot of initiatives, I think, where we will see some value and some savings, and we'll look at those again coming forward with the 2020 budget and see where they fit into everything. So if we just, I don't know if you want to go through the detail, but I was just going to skip you all to page 17, where you can kind of see the rolled up summary of where those surpluses for the main part at this point in time have been allocated. So in assessment and taxation, there's been some restructuring, as well as in emergency services, which is generating a good portion of that surplus. In planning and development, there's some development revenues. In finance and admin, we're seeing our investment portfolio is actually doing very well. We met with the Wood Gundy representatives, Tracy and I, just last week actually, and they said that we invested just at the right time, and we got some really good rates. So we're actually doing quite well there. So we're seeing some of that through our revenues as well. And then fire calls, of course, are always it's always busy. The winter season is a long, cold one, and there's a lot of motor vehicle collisions. So that's where a lot of that additional revenue is coming from, as well as some the fire agreements, just some renegotiating within the fire agreements. That basically sums up the majority of the $154,000 surplus that we projected as of the end of April. I don't know if there's any specific questions on any departments that council has at this time.
Are there any questions specifically?
carry on.
Oh, I thought you were,
Oh, no. Pass along. On the next page, page 18, I know that council has seen this, and this has also gone out in our county connection paper, and it's just a summary of the capital projects as they were approved through the budget. So you can see that a lot of the projects have been started and in some cases completed. I didn't include all of the fleet purchases in this one, but there's a copy of that in the written summary if you have any questions there. And as we get moving again through the summer months, and a lot of the road work will be getting completed, so we'll see more of these projects coming in with some actual cost to date.
Ken?
So the projects that, like for Sunset and River Ring, I don't see, this one, that they were gonna have the Kip Road, which is Range Road 19.5, included this year.
Yes, Councillor Benson, we completed the additional engineering for the easterly portion, the easterly mile of the Kip Road, and we've got it in the capital budget for 2020.
I thought it was gonna be done this year.
We'll be at it for, in the 2020 budget, I believe. Am I correct? Pretty sure it was 2020.
I have to
Yeah.
look to confirm.
We had the, like I said, we had some engineering done last year for the segment between Highway 3 and Highway 25, and, sorry, 23 and 5. And then we added the additional mile going east into that as well, and then we were able to determine a budget number for moving forward in 2020.
So you're not even doing the requisition or reconditioning?
On the paved portion of Kip?
Yeah.
No, that's planned for next year, is to do an overlay on that entire 4-mile strip.
Lawrence?
That basically was gonna be my question, Mr. Chairman, what type of work, yes.
Any other questions?
Okay, so we'll just carry on then. Pages 19 and 20 are a summary of the grant funding and projects, which grants were applied to such. I just want to make a note here that Amelia was in touch with Municipal Affairs with regards to provincial grant funding, and they indicated that projects won't be approved until after provincial budget is approved. However, if we feel our projects fit within their guidelines that are already set out, that municipalities are to go ahead with them. Amelia knows the guidelines and the administrators at Municipal Affairs quite well, feels very comfortable that all of our provincial funded projects would be eligible under the guidelines, so don't foresee any issues there. It didn't sound like, and they can't make any promises of what's gonna happen, but it didn't sound like 2019's funding would be taken away now, but of course there's no guarantees. So just a note there for council.
Steve?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On page 19 on the federal gas tax fund, it shows kind of a carryover to 2018. So does that mean we don't have to spend everything that we received in that year? So we can sort of carry forward, I guess?
Yeah, Councilor Cambrose, through the chair. Those funds are given to us ahead of time, so they're ours to spend after the date. We do have some deadlines assigned to them, so I believe it's the following year end, December, but you can ask for extensions on all of those. Amelia usually tries to ensure that we're utilizing the funds where the closest deadlines are pending. So there is some money there. Also with the federal gas tax fund, they doubled it for 2019, so we all have those additional dollars there as well. But we're not in a position at this point where we're looking at losing them.
And also on there too, it mentions the 2018 allocation is not received. Or is that a misprint for 2019 or?
They split that allocation up, so probably by April, we hadn't received it yet, but I believe we've probably received it now. So they kind of do a prepayment and then a later payment after you've submitted all your statement of fundings.
Okay,
So I know that those have all been submitted to the province.
okay.
So does that mean that you have to spend the double gas tax this year, or can you carry it through to 20, or?
It can be carried forward to 2020. I believe December 31st, 2020 might be the deadline on that, but again, you can ask for extensions.
Okay. Any other questions?
That was pretty well the financial summary for January to April. I will be bringing forward another quarterly one, so you'll see me again soon. At the end of July, which will be the end of the tax collection season, July 31st. So that'll come forward in August or early September.
Okay. Any other last questions? Thanks very much for your report. We need a motion then. Bob? Discussion on the motion? Call the question, those in favor, those opposed? Okay, let's move down to bylaw G, page 74 to 77, bylaw 19-022, Lethbridge County, Vulcan County Municipal Development Plan, first reading. And you have a handout, what's the handout that was in front of your agenda package?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll turn on the mic. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Council. So this is, as mentioned, the first reading for the Lethbridge County, Vulcan County Intermunicipal Development Plan. So we have, as per the requirements under the Municipal Government Act, we have drafted a intermunicipal development plan between the two municipalities, which sets the framework for continuing our development and discussions with Vulcan County as things happen along our common border. And I did include the draft in the front package of your, in the front of the binder. It's pretty much the same as most of the other rural ones that we've done, the MD of Willow Creek, the MD of Tabor. We use the same format for that, the same policy structure, taking into consideration, obviously, there's a bit of different geography, there's some differences in regards to land use in that area, maybe a little bit less than we see in some of our other boundaries, but essentially we use the same format for that. So just to make it easy for when we're moving forward with referrals and stuff, so that we're when Sarah has to send out stuff for development, or Steve Hardy or myself are sending referrals, that it's common for all of our boundaries, so we don't have any differences there. We did have an open house for the IDP. Many of council was able to make it to that. We did have a pretty good turnout, I thought. I mean, given the number of landowners that are in the area, because we had 9 landowners show up to the meeting, and that was on May 27th. And we had two representatives come from Vulcan County Administration, but none of their council was able to make it that day. We have also sent out notices to external agencies. There's about a list of 30 that I sent it out to. So I've received most of the comments back. We don't usually get a lot of comments from those referral agencies, but it just lets them know what we're doing. And those comments will be included in the public hearing report, which will come in August. And I anticipate that we'll have a public hearing on August 16th, or sorry, it should be the 15th, not the 16th, unless you want to come in on a Friday. So the IEP was completed in-house, and we did get the Oldman River Regional Services Commission to complete all the maps for us, and so that cost will be shared with Vulcan County. So other than my administrative time, so those are the financial implications, and we do recommend that first reading of the bylaw be approved by County Council so that we can set up the public hearing for August. Are there any questions of council on the IEP or anything that happened?
Yeah, would you prefer the Friday meeting rather than the Thursday?
Probably Thursday.
no.
Just check it.
Yeah. Any other questions?
So, if I may, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, you may.
Yeah, thank you. And Hillary, it looks like to me, you know, some of these, IDP, open houses we have, that it seems to be perceived as just a kind of a bureaucratic type of deal, because there's very little interest of people being down there or stating their concerns or whatever, you know, so, and it is, like, it was brought forward by the province, I guess, and that you must have that in place, but the thing is, nothing rocked the boat, so I'm not trying to say, you know, next time it comes up, you know, maybe we gotta find some items on there, we could really rock the boat and get some people out, but, yeah, it's kinda disappointing, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I was actually surprised that we did, get 9 people coming out. I know that does sound quite low, but if you really look at the land ownership in the north end of the county, it is, fairly limited. So we had a lot of the major landowners come out, which I thought was great. And some acreage owners too, so it was a little bit of a mix, but I think, because this isn't a widely populated area, you're not gonna get as much interest, whereas when we did the one for the MD Willow Creek, we actually had a fairly good turnout for that. I think there was about 25 people who came out for that, which once again doesn't sound like a lot, but, when you consider the type of document that this is, it's not too bad. And we have to do it, so we don't really have much of a choice.
Basically my point.
Any other questions? Go ahead, Klaus. Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll move the first reading here, that the bylaw 1902 be read for the first time.
Any discussion on that? Yeah, okay. Seeing no discussion, I'll call the question. Those in favor? Those opposed? Carried. Let's move down to bylaw 19-0-19-020. Nicole Vandenberg, text amendment to land use bylaw, pages 78 to 81.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this particular bylaw amendment was brought forward by a citizen in the county who has some Hamlet industrial properties located just off of Dale Road in the Hamlet of Fairview. And they were looking to get a different type of business into their locations there. Maybe diversifying, they want to diversify what is available to come into the hamlet. And so in discussions with Mrs. Vandenberg, we did discuss what some options might be that could still fit in with the Hamlet Industrial District, not compromise what's already there, but allow them for some flexibility in terms of the types of tenants that could come in. And instead of rezoning them to say a direct control or something like that, it was decided that there's some uses that could be added to the Hamlet Industrial District that would fit, broadly speaking, over all Hamlet industrial parcels in the county. And so that is the minor recreation and clubs, fraternal organizations. And those would be added as both discretionary uses, so there would be they would be scrutinized if somebody were to apply for those to ensure that they're not mixing like with the fertilizer plant across the road or something like that. So with that, so the minor recreation would allow for such things as like an indoor gym, paintball, you know, laser tag, maybe an indoor soccer field like what we have in Orion Sports out in Duncan Industrial. And you can see I've included the definitions in there too, so it's quite broad what you could include, but it would allow for more indoor recreation opportunities specifically in the hamlets. And which isn't there, it doesn't exist today unless there's a school or a community hall there. Also with regards to the clubs and fraternal organizations, I've also included the definition of what that would be, so that would include things like a meeting place for social or recreational activities, not-for-profit, philanthropic organizations, social services, businesses, or fraternal organizations, and it's with no on-site residences. So this would allow things like the Pottery Guild, or they have some other interested parties that are like that. This would fit under that. So getting to more of those community-based organizations and clubs to have a space, which would not interfere with, once again, existing industrial uses. So with that, we have circulated this application to the county departments and external agencies for their review, including the city of Lethbridge, because we do have some Hamlet industrial close to the city. And we would anticipate that we would have the public hearing for this bylaw on August 15th, 2019. With that, are there any questions of council with regards to this particular type of amendment? It's a little bit different than what we normally get, so.
So Dave, just a question, what kind of facility would this have to occur in, like it wouldn't be, from what you kind of listed here, couldn't be in a house
No,
per se, it would have to be,
so with regards to the type of facility, so if you think of like any type of larger building, in Fairview, you may, as you drive by on the jail road, there's some larger bay type buildings, structures that have been there. And so that's kind of what you could convert these uses into. So yeah, it wouldn't be a residence, it would be more like a hall or a site, built to suit type building. Something that would be similar to, it would be like how they converted the McNally School into those type of, where people could rent out a space for them to use for their particular organization or group. So I think that's where we were heading with in terms of that type of use, so.
yeah.
Is there any way we could see a map? Or is
No,
that too, asking too much?
you're not asking too much. It's just, because it's not specifically to a specific property, it's not, I mean, it's relevant to all Hamlet industrial
okay.
properties, it's not specific.
Just a general area.
Yeah,
I just wanted
sure.
to-
I can show you where where the Vandenbergs have their property and just kind of what they would envision, so. So they own this property here, which is on the east side of Fairview, and so you see they have a large, they have two buildings. One is a bit larger, where you could divide that into spaces for groups and organizations to meet, or you can convert the whole thing into, say, like a rec type facility, like indoor archery, soccer, fitness center, something like that. That's what it says here, and this would apply, say, in Diamond City, there could be this particular type of use, or in Shaughnessy, where, you get some older buildings that you want to convert into a use that would be more community-based. That's kind of what I was envisioning. Thank you.
Steve?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You mentioned the Duncan Industrial Park with the gym facility
Yeah.
there. Is it worded in the industrial parks that those are like kind of listed as recreation
Yes.
facilities to them? So that basically is just something that's missing in the hamlet is.
Yes, Councilor Campbell through the chair, that's what when I was looking through the bylaw, that's why I picked out recreation or minor recreation as one, is because we have it already in our rural general industrial, and there's no reason why it couldn't fit very well into our Hamlet industrial as well. It's just, the Hamlet industrial, we haven't seen a lot of movement, there's not a lot of change in tenants or occupancy, but in this area, and in other areas, we're probably gonna see some more of these changes where we want to build in a little bit more flexibility. There's one way to do that.
So one last question for me, so
Yeah.
if they come in and they wanna have, say, a gym in one of those older buildings, do they need to go through a process to get a permit to do that, or how does that work? Same as anything else?
Yep, it would be the same process as anything. We would, as I mentioned, consider it a discretionary use, so they would have to apply for a development permit. And they would also, if they're doing any interior renovations, they'd have to get their building permits to make sure that it was built up to code. Yes, all the permits would apply the same.
Thank you. Any other questions? Morris?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to Hillary, when there is a certain business like that want to be in a hamlet or for that matter, just out in the country too, when they need permitting, how long does that take to get all the permits in place? Because I've been hit up by that just this week, matter of fact.
Sure, so development permitting, we have up to 40 days to make a decision on a development permit application. It can be less, It's not generally longer, we're pretty efficient in terms of processing. And then building permits, it depends on, because Park Enterprises does the building, electrical, plumbing, gas permits. So if they have all their information in, then it's the right type of information, those permits can be issued within a couple days. So development permits take a little bit longer because we have to do the circulation, we have to do the review internally, and then there's the appeal period that's attached to that under the MGA. And then the building permitting is a much faster process. So once you get your development permit, you pretty much apply for your building permit and get your permit issued within a day or two. So, and start whatever you need to do.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman, thank you, Hillary. The big one is, there is a processing plant being proposed, just east of Richelieu down there, and the people in that circle, they've sure been hitting me up for the rigmarole and the bureaucracy and everything else that's holding it up.
We've approved the development permits, those have been long approved, if it's
Yeah,
their building.
so
site,
is it the province that holds it up, or?
No. They
So
have
the-
to meet the building code for their building permits. And
Yeah.
if that's what's been holding them up, that has nothing to do with the county, that's under the Alberta Building Code, so.
So maybe,
The county has approved the rezoning, we approved their development permit, we did that in the spring. So, I'm not sure where their, building permits stand, but I can check.
yeah, I don't know. I was just told it's the county.
We don't issue building permits, so.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thanks, Hillary. You've got a motion, please.
I'll move.
Any further discussion? Call for the question. Those in favor? Those opposed? So we have a 10:30 public hearing, which I could receive a motion now to open the public hearing for bylaw 19-017, the Kevin Elman area structure plan for the northwest 29-921 west of the port, and that is part of your agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Those in favor? Carried.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this is the public hearing portion for bylaw 19-017, which is the Aylman Area Structure Plan. And Mr. Aylman is here to speak in support of his application and to answer any questions of council at that time when the chairman asked for that. So with regards to this particular area structure plan, Mr. Aylman wanted to, or has proposed this area structure plan because he would like to be able to subdivide his particular parcel in this area. Currently, he has about an 8-acre parcel and he'd like to subdivide it into 3 parcels. Under the intermunicipal development plan that we have with the city of Lethbridge, we agreed that for these areas which are somewhat already subdivided but could be further subdivided, so increasing the density of the area, that it would be appropriate to have an area structure plan put in place to address things like access, drainage, utility servicing, water access, potable water access, so that moving forward, there's a document that everybody can abide by in terms of moving forward with subdivisions. Because there are a number of parcels other than Mr. Aylman's that could be subdivided in the future. And so this just moves us forward in that particular direction. And so he was able to do that with the Wild Brothers Engineering. They created this area structure plan, which does set out the framework for future development in this particular portion of the county north of the city. So this area, as I mentioned, is north of the city, just west of Range Road 21-4A. So many of you would know that's the way that you can get to the Lafarge gravel pit, and that there's a large number of acreages already developed in this area. To the north, there is what we call the Deerview Estates, and then just to the south of this area is Edgewood Stables. And so this is the area kind of sandwiched in the middle that has a few larger lots that could be further subdivided in the future. The application was circulated to county departments, external agencies, and the city of Lethbridge for review. The proposed plan does comply with the policies that we have in our municipal development plan and also those within each municipal development plan with the city of Lethbridge. As it proposes to subdivide some larger country residential lots. It doesn't take up any agricultural land, prime agricultural land. It is along a coulee slope and it is close to the city, so it ticks a number of boxes that we have in our municipal development plan. And there is an existing infrastructure in place to support the subdivisions also. The ASP will address, the area structure plan, sorry, would address the future road access into the area. So if you'll notice right now, there's kind of two panhandle accesses in this particular area that allow for access for these parcels. If in the future, these parcels on the end or even in the middle would wish to subdivide, they would have to dedicate one of those roads as a county road instead of them being panhandles. Just because access easements tend to be problematic when you get more people wanting to access them and who's going to maintain them going into the future. So the plan addresses that going into as lots would be subdivided down the road. The proposal also complies with the policies of the each municipal development plan, which was, as I mentioned, one of the policies that's required in that plan with the city, that we have this in place so that everybody's aware of what's going on, that we can address the issues with, or not issues, but that we can address the city's concerns with further development in this area. The city did comment on the area structure plan and they had no concerns with it because it met all the policy requirements. They did just note that we should be aware that there is that functional planning study being done for the Township Road 9-4. They call it 62nd Avenue North in the city, which is that main north east-west road bordering the city and the county. So that plan is still under development, but that will affect future access for these residents. There'll be some maybe service roads in the future, but we are aware of that. Residents are aware of it. They've been well kept in the loop on that particular project. Alberta Transportation and ACO Pipelines also, and Fortis provided comments that had no concerns with the proposed application. This application was advertised in the May 28th and June 4th editions of the Sunny South News. At the time of this report, I had two adjacent landowners called in and inquired about the intent of the plan, but no concerns were expressed. I did have another person come into the office here just requesting some more information and asking about the drainage plan for this particular area structure plan. And another person on the phone also asking about drainage. There is a stormwater management plan in the area structure plan that was done by Wild Brothers Engineering, so it's an engineered plan, which would be implemented at the time of subdivision. And so with that, they seem to be, at that time, confident that that was enough information. So with that, Mr. Ailman is here for if you have any questions of him, but if you have any questions of myself, I'm happy to answer.
Any questions for Hillary? What are those little silver things on the, it kind of looks like you're going down the coulee there, sort of, just a little jigger. Right there where the writing is on the white lettering? No.
No.
Right there?
This is a residence.
Okay.
Yeah. This is an acreage property here, and that's their residence and their outbuildings.
Any other questions? Seeing none. We shall move into the public part. So those people wishing to address council, please address to council and limit your comments to 5 minutes. So I will start with those people opposed to the plan. Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? And last call, is there anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Seeing none, I will call for those who wish to speak in favor. Anyone wish to speak in favor? Anyone wishing to speak in favor? And last call, anyone wishing to speak in favor? Seeing no one, does council have any last questions? Seeing none, I would ask for a motion to close the public hearing. Morris? Any discussion? Call for the question, those in favor? Those opposed? Carried. So recommendation is for second reading for bylaw 19-017. Bob? Any discussion? Call for the question, those in favor? Those opposed? Carried. And do you wish to go to third reading today? Morris? Moving third reading? Any discussion? Seeing none, call a question. Those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Let's move back down to bylaws. Pages 82 and 109. Lethbridge County and MDO intermunicipal collaborative framework.
Jump in. Thank you, council. As we have been doing for the last few months, we've been bringing forward IDPs and ICFs. This is the ICF for Willow Creek. It's fairly straightforward. We worked on it internally with the administration from Willow Creek. It's always a good opportunity to work with our neighboring rurals. So this, even though this is something that's been legislated by the province, it was a good opportunity to meet with the CAO and staff and talk about common interests. Also, yesterday, we heard directly from Municipal Affairs that if these ICFs are not completed by April 1st, 2020, that they will go directly to arbitration. So having these in place before next April is very crucial. We heard directly from Municipal Affairs that these ICFs are not completed.
Sorry.
Larry?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Just to reiterate what CAO Mitchell said, page 93, I think, summarizes the ICF quite nicely, and it just identifies the essential components that need to be addressed in an ICF. And as you can see there, under solid waste, the county and the MD of Willow Creek have no agreement, so it's kind of a non-issue, but it is acknowledged. And, you know, everybody seems to be satisfied with that. Same for recreation and wastewater. With respect to water, the county does provide some service to the MD of Willow Creek in the Moon River Estates for the maintenance and operation of their water distribution system. Emergency services, we're both signatories to the agreement on resource sharing during municipal emergency responses in southern Alberta. Other, it just talks generally about a little bit about economic development, broadband services, and the recently established joint assessment review board for the subdivision and subdivision appeal board. Intermunicipal development plan has already been adopted, and that just in effect forms part of the ICF. It's just one more of the agreements that comes under that overall high-level arching, high-arching ICF. So that's it. Fairly, again, I think straightforward.
Morris?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, that the emergency services, that probably was discussed, but, you know, Moon River State, they don't have their own fire department anymore. So has the county been approached, see if we wanted to give services through the town of Noblefort or Colhurst or even Barrons? Or did they approach them?
Through the
the chair, to Councillor Zeenstra, I'm not aware of that, honestly, Councillor Zeenstra. They haven't approached the county for that specifically. They may have approached those individual municipalities and just sort of tried to make some arrangements in that regard between the, you know, for example, the Village of Barons or the town of Knowlford or Colhurst even, I suppose, for that matter. But I'm not aware of that having occurred.
But that's a good point, and in our next ICF discussion with the urbans, we will make sure to bring it up.
I think the point there is that Moon River is a little bit isolated, and it's probably has a quicker response maybe from some of those municipalities than anywhere located where there's a fire department in Willow Creek, right? So, you know, so from that perspective, you know, that, you know, could be some common sense and logistical, you know, advantages to doing that.
Any other questions? So have any of these been kind of reviewed by the government yet? Or, like, because this seems, and I don't mean to be negative on it, but it seems kind of vague in a lot of areas. Or is that the way they're supposed to be?
They are supposed, well, they're general documents, but the original one that we're using as a template was the one with the MD of Tabor, and that one was done by an outside agency and was vetted through municipal affairs. So that is the agreement that we're using all of these other agreements on. I think that came forward in October.
Yeah, it is. Steve?
Yeah, just maybe add to that, in our discussions with municipal affairs, they indicated that they won't be reviewing them, they'll just be filing them. And if there's an issue, then they'll be taking a look at it. So it's basically have it done and have it filed up there by the April 2020 deadline. But we're not gonna go through every single one filed and review it. They say it's your agreement, it's only if there's problems, then they'll open it up to take a look. So that's what we've been advised.
Was that under the previous provincial government or the current?
That's a good question. I can't say 100% certainty. It was about that time of the change, so.
Yeah, because I think that was the stance of the previous provincial government. And the new ones, we haven't heard anything other than everything will go directly to arbitration if they are not.
But on the terms of the agreement themselves, really, right, that's between you and your neighbor.
Steve?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So when you say that they don't review the ICFs, is that kind of the same as the intermunicipal development funds that we do? Do they not review them either? Okay.
Yeah, on file. If there's a problem, then they'll take a look.
Okay.
Any other questions? Yes, go ahead, Steve.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Obviously, we don't have many shared services between rural to rural, so I guess that's the reason why it is basic. So I will move first reading of bylaw 19-21, Lethbridge County and MD of Willow Creek intermunicipal collaboration framework.
Yes, Lorraine?
Mr. Chairman, there's two different documents. There's the ICF agreement, and then there's also the bylaw. So we need both of those adopted.
We need to adopt the framework agreement first.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Ken? Any discussion on that? Call for question, sorry. Those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, so Steve, I'll put you down for first reading.
Okay.
Any discussion? Call question, those in favor? Those opposed? Carried. Second reading. Any discussion? Seeing none, call question, those in favor? Those opposed? Carried. Go to third reading, consider third reading rather, and it has to be unanimous, Those in favor? Those opposed? Carried. And third reading. Dory? Those in favor? Those opposed? Carried. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Let's move down to H1, Stuart Siding, page 110 to 112.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Pull up the map here. Okay, so Municipal Services is requesting from council to proceed with the Stuart Siding Base and Pave project with a change of scope and a requested increase of budget. So this project was approved for the 2019 year with a budget of $540,000. And this was based on the presumption that we proceed with the same methodology, the same construction methods as we did in 2016 when we did Stewart Avenue. I'm just going to zoom in for you guys so you can see what we did complete. This portion of Stewart Ave we completed, and then Trackside Drive up to right there. Correct, yes. We did that in 2016, and I based my pricing off those numbers. I added inflationary costs in and some minor grading work I thought was required on Oak Avenue. However, after we did the geotechnical evaluation, it was found that the structure that we thought was there wasn't there. When we completed the work in 2016, we did it without engineering. I went out there and I took a pickaxe to the road and I dug down 2 feet, and there was lots of gravel there. So I based my design structure on that. Conversations with a previous foreman indicated that that type of structure was present throughout the majority of the subdivision. However, when the geotechnical evaluation was completed, they go in there with a drill rig, they drill in the road, they see what their structure is. It was a lot less than we anticipated. So due to that, to account for the heavy loading in the industrial park, additional structure is required. When you add additional structure, you narrow up your road because of your side slopes. So because of that, some grading work to do some widening in the industrial park is required. So our recommended motion would be for County Council to approve the requested scope change and budget increase of $616,000 through the Municipal Sustainability Initiative and Federal Gas Tax Fund for the Stuart Siding Base and Pave project for a total project budget of $1.156 million. Some background, I kind of touched on this already. Like I said previously, we did it all in-house. There was a lot more structure on those 2 roads identified than the remaining roads, and like I said, we found that out through drilling core holes into the gravel road and measuring that structure. So if you go to the following page, we do have some alternatives and analysis for you. I just want to add in, we are tendering this project with Riverbrink Estates and the Picture Butte Shop Road to try and realize some savings, quantity of scale, trying to bring out our per unit cost. So hopefully we're going to realize some savings there as well. So I do have a couple alternatives here. If you look at that table, the first top left column is the engineer's estimate, and it breaks down every segment of road. And actually, if you flip that page over, I've got them identified with costs to each segment, if you'd like to look at that. But our recommendation is pretty much what the engineer's estimate is, to do all of those roads within the industrial park. I did meet with Mr. Baylog, and we needed to specifically address his access coming into this portion right here where there's a lot of heavy truck traffic. And he reiterated a few times that he is quite happy with how it functions right now. He would be more than happy for those dollars that were allocated for that section of road to be spent elsewhere. So there is an opportunity to leave that piece out and save a little bit of money on this project. It may also help in the future if this north-south road, 211A, gets developed. There will be some work in here that's required. So it may be best to wait on that segment of road, and it really only services Mr. Baylog. So that is an option. We do have, our recommendation is to continue with that. But if you'd like to remove that specific section, there'd be about $195,000 in savings right there. Option one I've got here is to do Clark Road, Ponderosa, and Cox Drive. So that's kind of in the northerly end of the business park. And then my second option is Cox Drive, Albert Street, and Oak Ave, which is more in the southerly end of the industrial park. There's some figures below the table there. The remaining MSI and FGTF as of May 30th was about 2.5, based on Jim's report this morning, that's about 2.35, the numbers I was looking at. And just, again, for your information, the remaining funds in the Public Works Project Reserve as of June 12th was 2.7 million. The reason I'm recommending to move forward with the entire project, we will realize a bit of savings doing it all at once instead of in separate phases. And it may also spur development at a quicker rate within the industrial park. We have noticed since the asphalt went in that there has been some new development there, and some of those old lots have been cleaned up, and so it is generating some interest in the industrial park.
Morris, and then Steve.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, just to, Devin, are we, when we do that type of work, is there gonna be a different assessment to the businesses down there?
Well, that's a very good question.
Likely, I would imagine, being on a paved road would probably increase assessment somewhat. I don't know how much exactly, but.
I'm not sure how much that is. I know it's a little different, but I don't know how much. Steve?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a question on the MSI and the federal gas tax. We have 2.5 million kind of unallocated or no projects for so far?
Correct. That's, like I said, it's about 2.35 based on Jen's presentation this morning, but yeah, around there is what we have unallocated, and a couple of reasons why it's at that amount. We did get an additional 500,000 through FGTF, and we did get STIP funding for the bridge file just south of Noble for a little under $500,000 right there that we weren't sure if we were going to get. So there is some savings there as well in that fund.
Thank you.
Any other questions? So, I just have two actually. What about Snyder Road or Drive or whatever you call it on the very, kind of southeast or westerly portion there? The one that's kind of not quite a full road width wide?
Yes, thanks for bringing that up, Mr. Chairman. I meant to mention that when we looked at that in the field with the engineer, we ultimately determined that we should probably leave that segment out for now. It doesn't have a lot of traffic, as you know, it's very narrow and it's not centered in the right of way, so there would be a significant amount of work required to that road to bring it up to the standard as the rest of the business park. So we did exclude that from the scope of work. However, if you were to decide to eliminate Trackside Drive, there's a possibility that that could go towards Schneider.
So when Trackside, does it go all the way over to Snyder? Does it follow that little loop that's in there when you're paving it? Is that what that is?
There is an undeveloped road allowance that would theoretically connect Schneider up to Trackside if it was developed. Right now, it's undeveloped. This segment right here, is that what you're referring to, Mr. Chairman?
Well, you know where you come in off of Stewart onto Trackside. How far would you be going with the pavement on Trackside is what I mean, I guess.
Oh, sorry. So the end of the existing asphalt is where my hand is right here. And we were gonna come around this corner and extend it just past his entrance right here. There is some issues in this area that we thought we'll just leave it for the time being.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm giving the wrong road. It's Clark, was the one I was wondering.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
That's right, what was the, you were
So are you paving it all the way over to what would be Snyder?
Correct, that's
Okay.
correct, yeah.
Okay, sorry,
No problem.
Ken?
So, to the, where's, there's, on Snyder Avenue, that goes to Ponderosa. And Cox Drive, is that done too now?
So a portion, sorry, all of Cox Drive is paved and a portion of Ponderosa. However, we learned that the thickness of the asphalt isn't sufficient for the traffic in the industrial park. There's only about 2 inches of asphalt on there. And we thought this is a perfect opportunity to do an overlay on that portion and bring it up to standard. It doesn't require any pre-work, it's just a simple overlay, so it's pretty cost effective to get that piece done.
It is banned over there.
Yeah, that's one, just 180,000 for that.
For the north-south portion of Cox, it's 34,000. Ponderosa, I wasn't able to split out just the overlay and the remaining portion of the road. The entire road for Ponderosa is 178, but the overlay on just Cox Drive is about 34,000.
Yeah, go ahead, Ann.
Now, given the fact that there is existing business owners in there, have we as county let them know we're paving? Are they expecting paving? My question is, what are the expectations of the business owners that may be getting paving or may not be getting paving?
Right. I have been in contact with a few business owners already. Like I said, Mr. Baylog. I've contacted the gentleman who owns this bay building right here, Mr. Belcourt, and then the gentleman down here with that bay building. They had specific access issues that I wanted to deal with ahead of time. I do plan on having an open house for everybody to come in. I'm gonna send a letter out detailing the project and host an open house so people can come in and ask any questions that they may have. So I have yet to communicate to everybody, but that's planned to be done very shortly.
Now they got my direction.
Go ahead.
Okay, so, Albert, the one coming out the East Road, Ray Road, that's Oak Drive,
Correct.
and then Albert Drive,
Correct.
and then Ponderosa, that goes to meet up to Stewart. No, that's done right away.
Stewart's done right to Snyder,
Yeah,
existing.
Correct.
Yeah.
so. Okay. But we get overlay. That's
No, you,
Cox Drive.
Fox. So that'll open up a lot of lots there.
go ahead.
I think you'll see some activity on Oak Drive in particular with all those vacant lots.
Yeah, I don't, because that's been a long time.
Yeah.
Well,
Are they all service lots like the city water and sewer?
No, they are not.
Okay, so where are they getting the water from right now?
well, for potable water, they have to haul it,
All it?
From what I understand.
Yeah.
so
Okay.
for just regular water, I think you can get it from the SMRD, out of the canal there.
Okay.
Go ahead, Steve.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the amount of truck traffic turned in the Baylog auction, likely damaging some pavement, and if he's okay with not being done there, I guess that's a starting point that would be a good one to pull from the project, in my opinion.
Sure.
The biggest trouble there is when they turn the corner to get up to their loading and unloading chutes is they use that, almost that, about 400, 500 feet of the road to get back on the road, so they're all over the place there. And you can't, and when you're driving on and off the pavement like that, it's gonna break the edge off.
That's correct, yeah, we would have to do some mitigation measures, well, or whether it's a meter or 2 meter additional width off the asphalt, that would theoretically chip away first and before it gets into the lane. We did talk to him about paving his entire lot in here, but he wasn't too interested in that. So yeah, we would have to do some mitigation measures to ensure that wouldn't happen.
Cause actually it's holding up pretty good where you just drive off the end and back on now, so.
So So the green part on trackside, that is what you were going to clean up very little bit?
That's correct.
Is that, yeah, that's where they turn off. But this, the area, or the traffic that goes up north on that, next to the auction, they, that has very little. Correct. Heavy stuff.
Correct.
So I know this is a hard question to predict, but what would, have you talked with Martin? What does he think of the possibility of more activity happening if it's paved there? Because I can tell you after the last time it was paved, it certainly has been cleaned up an awful lot.
Yes, I've noticed that as well. I haven't talked to Martin specifically about that, but I would imagine there'd be a lot of interest after this is complete.
Bob?
Is there any possibility we can get city water in there so we can trap water?
We, when we did our overall study of south of Lethbridge for servicing areas such as this, we do have a study that identifies it, but it's very costly at this time to do that.
Also, it's slightly out of the realm of our current agreement with the city for industrial type use.
Yeah.
So when we have the ICF with the city, perhaps that could change.
That would be ideal, yeah.
Yeah. Steve?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the southern portion in there on Oak, you've got listed at 288,000. Does anyone gain access off of there, like current businesses in there? I see some empty lots that would.
I'll just pan down there, Councilor Campbell. There is a business right here that gains access off that section.
Okay.
And then there is this lot right here, it's more just storage. So there's probably not a lot of activity, but there is this lot right there that currently uses that segment.
It's fairly busy down on the corner there where it turns into Albert.
That's how they kind of get.
Yeah.
That's the most direct route there.
Yeah,
That's the one that gets the one.
So, any other questions? Take that, Tori.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a comment, I guess. I think I've made this comment before to council, but I know, looking back about 14, 15 years now, when I was in university, I know we kind of toured around the area surrounding the city, and one of my professors at the time, while we were driving through Stewart Siding, made the comment that this is how you don't do an industrial park, and kind of, was very critical at the time of what was going on there. So I think, the previous council and this council's direction on trying to make some improvements there, and I think what the Reeve said, just driving by and using the park myself, you've definitely seen some improvements there. You've seen a little more pride in ownership, seen some new business there, seen more activity. So I think it's great that council has and continues to look at this as an opportunity to invest. But I would also agree with Councillor Campbell, if that northern portion there, if there isn't a huge appetite to have that done by Mr. Baylog, then I would echo that if we can eliminate that portion of it, I would support that as well. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? So, your thoughts? Do you want to move ahead? Ken?
You want a recommendation?
Oh, yeah.
A motion is to completing this project in 1 year will reduce the mobilization cost compared to splitting the project between 2 years. This also makes for addition development in the industrial industrial park grant with Chris. And, this one. That the county council approved the requested scope change and budget increase of 616 funded through the municipal sustainability incentive and the federal gas tax for the Stewart siding base and tape project for a total project budget of $1.156 million.
Any other discussion? Yes, Morris?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, so are we, does that has to be a two-part motion then to, if council desires to eliminate that portion to bail?
Tracy?
Because the way it is now, that's gonna be included.
Tracy?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I believe Larry can also speak better to this, but I believe that would require an amending motion if one of the councilors wanted to amend Councilor Benson's motion to specifically exclude that portion. Then you would vote on the amending motion first, and then from there, Larry can do better than I
Don't
did.
make my life difficult up here.
Just for fun.
Liven things up.
Well, if he doesn't want it, there's no point in doing it. So, somebody want to make an amendment to the motion? Dory?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I would move to amend to remove the section that's been discussed.
What was the number of that there? Devin, how much was it?
195,000. So you'd be 511,000 would be the request instead of 660. Pardon me?
421 increase, right?
Yes. No, you're correct. Thank you.
So we have an amended motion on the floor, so is there any discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, the amendment is to remove the portion of Trackside Road for $195,000 and have a $421,000 increase in the overall budget? Or do we need that as part of that amendment? You do? Okay. Is that correct, those numbers?
Double check.
I think it is correct.
421,000.
Okay, thank you. So, if there's no discussion, I'll call the question. Those in favor? Carried. So the motion as amended is to increase the overall budget by $421,000 with the elimination of that. Is there any discussion on that? Seeing none, I'll call the question. Those in favor? Those opposed? Carried.
Thank you, Mr.
Larry,
Chairman.
Larry is super proud of the way that was just handled. He's beaming over here.
You can use it in one of your next presentations. I'm going to do one.
Well done.
So, we have an 11 o'clock appointment for bylaw 19-023 off-highway vehicles, pages 33 to 41.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Council. As pointed out, page 33 to 41 in your agendas there. And I'll just mention, Mr. Chairman, that Community Peace Officer David Entz did the heavy lifting on the research to prepare and draft this bylaw. And he drafted the report, and then we worked together just to do some amending and kind of fine tuning. And without further ado, I'll maybe allow Officer Entz to present what we have here. Thank you.
Yes, good morning, Council. So at the March 21st, 2019 council meeting, council directed administration to report back on the legalities of allowing off-highway vehicles on Lethbridge County roads. The research that I did in all the municipalities that reported back to me, or that I could find online, none of them limit the use to farming operations only. It's inclusive to everyone, every citizen within their municipality. The MGA gives council the authority to pass bylaws that regulate the health, safety, and protection of its people at or near public places. But nowhere does it say that but it does not explicitly permit the inclusion or exclusion of certain classes, example, farmers. So the administration recommended motion is that bylaw 19-023 be read, given first, second, and third reading today. So currently, previous council direction of policies, currently it's illegal for off-highway vehicles to be on Lethbridge County roads. A bit of a background is there's a ministerial order out currently that allows off-highway vehicles to be on 3-digit highways, like 519, 845, for those are for farm use only. But there are several municipalities around us that currently have off-highway vehicle bylaws in effect. One of them is the MD of Willow Creek, County of Warner, and then we've got some northern municipalities like Warner County, Lacombe County, and Parkland County. And none of those municipalities limit their off-highway vehicles to farm use only. So currently when we, Sean and I, encounter off-highway vehicles on our roads, our hands are pretty much tied. We have to enforce what's currently in place, and that is say, sorry, you guys currently are not allowed to be on our roads with off-highway vehicles, and this occurs quite frequently, especially now that in the summertime when pivots go on. I mean, I bet you when I'm out there driving around, I see it at least 2 or 3 times a day, easily. So if council were to adopt the bylaw, then and providing everyone the users comply with the bylaw, it would be helpful for farming, especially for farming operations, especially in the summer months, so that they can be legally used on Lethbridge County roads. And it is not expected that we would see a significant increase in off-highway vehicles. But maybe once it gets passed, we might see it in the summer months. But once pivots are being shut down, we won't see much of an increase there. So the alternative and under the analysis is, yeah, like I said, it remains illegal to have them on our roads. Several other municipalities already have bylaws that allow it. But that the council could pass a bylaw to allow them to be on our roads, providing again that it's done in safety and in accordance with the bylaw and other provincial regulations. Some revenue is currently being collected for unauthorized use of off-highway vehicles on our roads, and it is anticipated that even with a bylaw there would be some more fines generated that way. So under reasons and recommendation, Lethbridge County citizens are currently illegally traveling on county roads with OHVs, and like as mentioned already, other municipalities have bylaws already to help out to make it legal. And ministerial order allows for OHVs to be on 3-digit provincial highways, but for farming operations only. And the council may adopt an OHV control bylaw to make it legal for OHVs to be on Lethbridge County roads, or continue the peace officers to educate and enforce the rules regarding OHVs on our roads. Any questions?
Morris? Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Could you repeat those last couple of comments, please?
Specifically which, Yeah, so the reason for recommendation is that currently farmers are traveling on county roads illegally. And it's happening quite frequently, so the recommendation is that council pass the bylaw to make it legal for OHVs to be on Lethbridge County roads. Or stay status quo and have peace officers enforce and educate the illegal operation of highway vehicles on our roads.
Go ahead, Councilor Voss.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, what it says here is that, on the 3-digit roads like 519, 845, will only be people that are in the farming business that are allowed to drive on those, and not any other people?
That's correct, so we are not changing anything on provincial highways. That would specifically just be for strictly for farming operations only. But if someone is on Highway 519 and then they turn off onto any ranch road or township road, well, now they're illegally operating an OHV on our roads. But yes, to be on Highway 519, it has to be for farming operations only. The general public can't be out on those roads.
So in other words, you need to have your license plate on your OHV and your helmet, of course, and everything like that. You probably also need it on the gravel road, like it states. But so this because I'm kind of confused about this already, because we have been stopped like on 519, and that they said you're not allowed on there. But like you said, this was provincial regulation already that was allowed on those kind of roads.
It's a ministerial order that was passed in 2006. And some officers may not be familiar that that's even out there.
Yeah.
I wasn't familiar myself here till about 2 years ago when another officer brought it to my attention. So yeah, the operator would have to have a valid driver's license, have to be registered, insured, and they would have to comply with all the regulations under the off-highway vehicle regulation as well.
So just out of curiosity, the sheet of paper you handed out to Schedule A, does that mean you can't ride in a helmet? If you can ride on a road legally, how come you can't travel on a helmet? Or a helmet? Never mind that question. Sorry. So the other one is 5.13, which is the hamlet or subdivision.
Yeah, no, so we put that in there to not allow them to be in hamlets, because we can kind of foresee there might be some issues with that. But if the councilors believe that that's something that they want, that can be added in, but it is not recommended at this time.
No, I'm not suggesting that, but that brings up an interesting point, because we had complaints a few years ago out by, in Councilor Horvath's area, where the kids have a little motorcycle track that they're riding in a subdivision area. And there was nothing we could actually technically do at the time. So would this actually enforce that? Or is
No, that wouldn't touch that case at all, because their bikes are on private property. This bylaw doesn't talk to private property, that specifically talks to county roads.
So I guess I'm kind of lost. It says operate an OHV within a hamlet or subdivision. So if the subdivision they're operating in is on private property, does that mean they can do it? Okay, I'm kind of confused there. Sorry.
No, I think I understand where you're coming from. They can operate it on, as long as they privately own that parcel, they could operate it on their parcel, but they can't come out on our road. Like, they can't be driving up and down the street in a hamlet. the way it's written right now? Or in the subdivision?
I believe it's because once, we have no jurisdiction over the private property, but we do have jurisdiction over the roads in the subdivisions in the hamlets. Would that be correct?
Morris?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So that's interesting because, you know, there's a lot of farmers that surround the land, around the hamlets or whatever, and they do check that the irrigation equipment have to drive through the hamlet. So are you saying, no, they can go through the hamlet, or they can, as long as it's farm use?
So which hamlet, and this specifically would be for?
I'll just name Fire Springs. It's a very simple one, like, there's a landowner that's on the north side of Highway 25, and he got some land right next to the hamlet of Iron Springs on the south side. So, and I know he does check his equipment with one of those places.
And that's true, but he has the option to go around too.
No, he can't. If he would go around, that'd be a long ways around. Yeah, no, so that, I think we should amend that. Oh, I'm sorry. I think we should amend that, Mr. Chairman, if we can, because, yeah, and I'm sure even in Turin, there's people that have farmland right next to it, and they wouldn't be able to go through the hamlet to get to the land then.
But I guess the problem then gets to be, then anybody could ride in a hamlet. You can't just say only farm vehicles can ride in a hamlet. Steve?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this bylaw is opening up for all farm vehicles. It's not just, like it's mentioned, inclusive or exclusive to certain classes of users. It's open to all then. Like, my concern would be, I think there's probably more licensed OHVs out there that aren't farmers that are suddenly gonna have access to the roads than there is just the farm use ones. That's just my thoughts anyway.
Bob?
I think trouble is, so everybody's in a red type of trouble. The guys that aren't farming are farming, are on that road no matter what right now in the summer. But the farmers need that little bit of leeway is what that's why I put it out there in the first place.
Yeah, one thing I can speak to, other than it being 12-year-olds or 14-year-olds that shouldn't even be on bikes, so I gently took them off the roads, but for the most part, up till now, it's always been farmers out there checking their fields that I've run in. That's the majority of the people who I run into.
Yeah.
Morris?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I guess it's, like when that happens, when a person gotta go through the hamlet to get from his, like I said, the obvious one is the farmer on the north side of Highway 25, and he has land on the south side too, and the only way to get there down there is on his motorbike or a quad down there to get from the north side to the south side. But I imagine there's probably a way around it, but that's provincial again. It would be nice if these units could be registered, just like our farm vehicle with a farm plate on it, with a farm sticker on it. Then you could overcome that, but that's not gonna, I can see that's not gonna happen. But the thing is, to me, I'm gonna look at it, it's probably up to the discretion whoever the officer is, and if he explains things pretty well, and I trust in that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Claus.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Then I come up another one, coming back to that, the 3-digit number one. It's highways for farming operations, it says here. So, are you gonna stop everybody to see? I'm not saying that you're doing that or anything, but just when you suspect somebody not being from a farming operation, does he have to prove that he's from a farming operation?
Are you specifically talking 3-digit number highways now?
Yeah.
Ye- Yes, most likely I would stop them, especially if they weren't plated. They would get stopped for sure.
No, but I'm talking about plated. Like if they're plated and everything like that, it's pretty hard to see from the outside if this person is gonna be going into the field somewhere else, or he's just gonna use
No.
the 3-digit roads.
No, I can pretty much tell if somebody has their boots on or they've got farm clothes on. I don't necessarily have to stop them, I pretty much know where they're going. But if it's someone out there in just casual coats and shorts riding around, yeah, there's a good chance he might get stopped.
I do that sometimes.
I'll keep my eye on you.
Be a good idea, actually, no. So, what do you wanna do here?
Well, I'll just make a comment to one second, if I may, Mr. Chairman.
Yes?
Well, it's better than what we have.
Oh, yeah. Bob?
I'd like to move first reading on it.
Any further discussion?
I have a problem with it. It's like, as soon as we pass this, and it's one of those situations where the provincial legislation overrides the municipal legislation, and I can't support it. Inevitably, if we could just have it for farm vehicles, and like, I'm sure our officers recognize the difference, and they're not going out there to get them, but if we approve this, then it goes to the whole county.
Yeah, well, that's what I was hoping, that the person was for farm vehicles again, but when they said they couldn't do for everybody for that. You know, I don't know if it's gonna open up anybody else to drive on it, everybody's driving on it anyway right now, so. And if you got the highways are 8519 and 845, they can go on it, you know, hey, I think it's, I think we have to do something for the guys.
I think our officers can be discretionary.
But, so, they go by the book.
Yeah.
So just a question on what you were talking about again. So currently you're saying that provincial legislation overrides municipal. So what, I don't know, I thought it was illegal without a bylaw in the county to ride any off-road highway vehicle on a county road, is that correct?
Yes, and
Even farm or not farm or whatever?
yeah, currently, under the Traffic Safety Act, unless a municipality passes a bylaw, no one can ride an off-highway vehicle on Lethbridge County roads.
Okay. Thank you. So, any more, yeah, go ahead, Steve.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just think it creates a safety issue. You've got quads or OHVs out there doing 50 kilometers an hour, and you got vehicles out there doing 80 kilometers an hour and dust on these gravel roads, and and then the fact that you're gonna open up to everybody, I just have a lot of concerns. And 5.3C mentions you have to have an operator's license, which would be 16 and above, I assume. And then 5.8 mentions you have to be 14 years of age, so are those two different things, or?
No, so at 14 years of age, you can get your learners. So there would have to be someone either on the quad themselves that has a class 5 or higher, or like class 1 to 5, or they'd have to be riding behind them.
Bob?
And we do have a speed limit exceeding 50, and really like, we got a Gator, top speed's 45, that will be higher. So some of these vehicles are set already at that rate, so, yeah. Not all, I know what your ones are.
Well, go ahead, Ann.
Just one thing too, what's this gonna do for manpower, given the fact that we have 2 CPOs only currently? How much more time is this gonna take off your workload that you currently have?
I think it will probably, if it were to pass, I think it would actually lessen my workload, because I wouldn't have to stop every quad that I see out there and say, hey, listen guys, I'm sorry, but you can't be on here. At the beginning, it might be a little bit more of a workload just to educate them. Hey, you have to have your helmet, it has to be registered and insured. But once that phase is come and gone, I actually foresee there to be less of us having to stop.
Klaus?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to speak in favor of this, because I think that, you know, with the less workload would be there. You're allowed on the 3 digital rows already anyway, and this makes it just more like that everything is the same. And I think seeing that there's a whole bunch of other counties and MDs that are doing that already, and it doesn't seem to be a problem there, so I would like to speak in favor of it.
Any other discussion? We have a motion on the floor for first reading. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, I'm gonna call the question. Those in favor? Those opposed? Carried. Now, you wish to move to second reading? Klaus? Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Those opposed? Carried. Move to consider third reading, bylaw 19-023, and it has to be unanimous to continue on to the next. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, that is a concern right now, I believe, you know, we're gonna go into,
So all that really means is if somebody votes against it, you can't have third reading today. You can bring it back at the next council meeting and have it. That's all it really means.
Yeah.
So it's up to you guys, so. If you choose not to enter into that today, you just bring it back for third reading at the next meeting.
Yeah,
You don't
that's
have to
what
have that motion then.
Yeah, that's what I think the use as well to bring it back to the next meeting.
Well, that's a decision you have to make.
You need that in the motion then, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
Either way,
I'm not quite sure on that one, Larry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My suggestion would be that someone make the motion that council consider a third reading of the bylaw, and then see where it goes, and if it's even one member, as you noted, isn't in support of that, that automatically would defer to a future meeting.
Okay. Yes, Ann?
Given the nature of this too, that it's, you know, would it be better to postpone it to a third meeting so it gives the public some time to look at it, at the bylaw?
Yeah, good idea.
I think that's fair as well, council, you know, that so-called sort of sober second thought.
It's gonna happen anyway.
Yeah.
So, if you choose not to make that motion today, you probably should have a motion to bring it back to a future meeting.
Sure.
Morris?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I think that's probably the right thing to do, is to bring it back at the next meeting.
We're gonna do that on July the 4th, or are you gonna be that specific with the date? Larry?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chairman. One consideration, and David and I did talk about this, is that given that, you know, here we are on the cusp of the height of summer, I think tomorrow's the first day officially of summer, if I'm not mistaken. If council chooses to proceed with it, you know, maybe it makes sense on some levels to adopt it sooner rather than later. You know, if we don't do it maybe on the July 4th special meeting, we'd be looking, I think the next scheduled meeting is August 1st. You know, we're halfway through summer. The bylaw is probably largely applicable, of course, through those warmer summer months. So just one consideration for council to maybe keep in mind.
So I'll put it down to bring back to July 4th meeting. Okay? Any discussion on that? Call for the question, those in favor? Those opposed?
Thanks, Dave.
Okay. Well, it's not perfect yesterday for a guy like you.
I think we're moving down to 5.1, community services, and that's solar collection facilities, proposed amendments 113 to 114. Hillary?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Are we all good to go?
Oh, yeah, if anybody doesn't know the difference between a helmet and a helmet, you know?
I have that problem all the time. So, today for council's information is, we've had this discussion ongoing since, I guess, last December on solar collection facilities. And so we've, been able to get some information. Steve Hardy from the Old River Regional Services Commission has provided us with a discussion paper for us to consider solar collection facilities and how the county and county council would like to move forward with that. So with that, I will dive in, and I hope that everybody, if you stop me if it doesn't make sense, because this is a bit of a complicated one. And it's even more complicated, as you'll notice, as I get through. So at the December 17th meeting, County Council directed administration to review the siting criteria for solar collection facilities within the county. In addition, Estes Ventures, who was the applicant for a solar collection facility, Dr. Coledale, had requested a meeting with county administration to discuss options of how they could obtain county approval for their facilities that they proposed, as they were defeated by county council in December. It was discussed at this meeting that the land use bylaw would have to be amended to include more flexibility on the siting criteria for solar collection facilities. The regulations of solar collection facilities is somewhat of a unique challenge for us. We are required by the Saskatchewan Regional Plan and the Municipal Government Act to protect agricultural land, while on the other hand, diversify the economy and support alternative energy developments. So we've got lots of things that could happen. Where do we want to go? The current land use bylaw regulations support solar projects located on parcels of less than 80 acres and not on irrigated land. The siting criteria has posed a problem for solar companies as existing substations are located primarily on more prime agricultural land. Another challenge that we face, and more recently faced, is that the Alberta Utilities Commission can approve a project even if it doesn't comply with the county's regulations. This is the case with the Coledale Solar Project. Alberta Utilities Commission, despite County Council's decision, approved the project. And so here we sit today. But as I mentioned, Steve Hardy has, in the background over the last few months, been working on a discussion paper, which is in the front of your binders. And I don't know if you had a chance to review it. It looks at some history. It looks at kind of the framework that we have today, the different types of facilities, and then it provides a number of possible options that we can move forward with. And I won't go through this paper. We don't have time for that. So I'll just go through some of the options that, in discussions with Steve Hardy and the rest of the senior management at the county, some options that we felt were viable that county council could consider. So the first option is the status quo. keep the bylaw the way it is and we enforce it as is. And, you know, if people can comply, they can comply, if they can't, they can't. That's how bylaws work. The second option would be is to remove the parcel size restriction on solar developments, thus allowing solar developments on all types of agricultural land, regardless of whether or not they're prime agricultural or not. And that could be approved by the Development Authority as a discretionary use. So that's kind of like, there's the keep it that way it is, or just open the doors wide open and just let them go wherever they want. The third option would be to amend the municipal development plan that the county has and put a cap on the number of acres that can be developed with solar facilities within the county and remove the parcel size restriction. So we got this idea, Steve provided this particular option based off of the MD of Pincher Creek, who has a cap on the number of windmills that they have in their municipality. They have a lot, and they're just a bit, they wanted to limit that. So they put that into their municipal development plan, so this was kind of an option on the solar side. When the cap is reached, county council could review the cap and see if it could be expanded, or if we were just fine with the number that we have. Option 4 would be to remove the parcel size standard once again from the land use bylaw and require that all solar collection facilities be redesignated to direct control, which is what SST's Power had already done. Thus, going through a public process prior to the issuance of a development permit. So this would bring it more into a more transparent and open process, but it would not be limited, so it would be like a 20-acre solar project, a 100-acre solar project, a 1,000-acre solar project. It would all come to county council for a direct control, which it could be fair. And so everybody would get the same type of consideration moving forward. So, and then the fifth option, and the one that administratively we kind of latched onto and thought would be good, would be a combination of 3 and 4, would be to have a cap on the number of, or on the acres for solar facilities, and that they be redesignated to direct control. This gives council the ability to have an oversight over the entire, over all the projects, solar projects in the county. So they would be allowed in the county at county council's discretion, but there's a cap that county council can say if there's too many of these coming in the door, that they can say, whoa, wait, we've decided that this is a number that we've settled on in terms of what we want. We have to review this. And so it gives you an option to say no, essentially. So with that, that's where we sit today with regards to trying to find a way to work with landowners, with solar collection, these solar collector projects, allowing for more flexibility, while still trying to maintain that our strategic goals of maintaining and protecting agricultural land. It gives a bit more of potentially a balance to what currently we have today. And I'll just sidebar that the AUC's decision on the project, from my opinion, was they didn't give county any direction. They gave us nothing. So it was very hard. I mean, it's not like I can take that direction. I can take something as long as they provide direction. But they have not called us back. I've called them. They don't call back an email. They don't email back. So I have nothing from the Alberta Utilities Commission. They just said, nope, it's approved. And now we're just kind of left holding the bag. But we have to make a decision in terms of how we want to move forward. And this is one way of doing that today. And then at the next council meeting, which I will not be in attendance to, but Larry and I are graciously going to provide another report with regards to an update on specifically that Coledale Solar project. Just because it's a bit complicated. So, but as it stands today with this report, I would like to know to county council to have a discussion on it. If you approve of the recommendation that we provided, or you want something different. But this just gives administration the ability to move forward on, say, a new bylaw that we can present to council, and provide us with a bit more direction, because we seem to be split on where to go on this. And right now, we only have the authority to do what's under the land use bylaw state, as approved by previous county council. So, with that, questions, comments, discussion?
Laws and Bob.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm just curious with the Pincher Creek project there. They go, if they would go to the direct control, the energy company, they can still just go ahead and do it, right? Without having their bylaw allowing it.
So, and this is a similar case with what we're dealing with today with the approval. So you have to bring everything into compliance regardless of what the AUC says. So they can approve a project. Now the county or the MD or whoever is obligated to ensure that that project can move forward. That means that you have to do an amendment to the bylaw. You have to issue a development permit, but you still have a process to follow. It doesn't circumvent the process. It just means now we have our marching orders, so to speak. So if the MD, so if the AUC approved a wind project that was above what the MD said was in their cap, the MD would then be obligated to amend their MVP. But it's still a process. They don't get around that process. They don't automatically just start building that project the next day. So like the assessee's power, they still are obligated to go through a county process in order to get their project going. They don't get to circumvent everything.
But eventually they would get it done.
Oh yeah, but there's still a process that has to be followed. Yeah, but it's true, and we have some challenges with the AUC in that they seem to be cherry picking what they want out of the South Saskatchewan Regional Plan. They're not looking at it as a holistic document, and that's an aspect that we're looking at challenging.
Steve?
Yeah, just as an antidote here, this AUC decision on the Coaldale one is the first one that we've seen where they haven't provided any direction, or if the municipality, having approved it, that they didn't have the applicants go back to the municipality and work with them prior to them issuing their decision. So even a lot of the wind farms in Pincher Creek, if the MD hasn't approved the rezoning or that sort of stuff, in most of those cases, the AUC sent the wind farm proponents back to the MD to discuss it with them, see if they could work out a compromise and do something different that would appease the MD before they rendered the decision. On the wind, Pincher Creek has reached their cap and they're doing a review right now on that. A lot of the public said, we have enough now, thank you, we don't want any more. So they're actually doing a review right now, but this decision that came out on the Coaldale Solar project is through our office and all the different municipalities. We've been involved with Alma Solar and the wind. We've had some recent ones in Tabor, where Tabor didn't approve. The solar company went back to them, they rearranged some stuff, took out some irrigated acres and stuff, and then he said, okay, we're more satisfied now, and they went back, and AUC got the approval. This is actually the first one where we saw they actually just ignored the rural municipality and just issued a decision with no direction. We haven't seen this before, this is the first time. So it's new waters. So.
Why do you think that is? They give us no insight, so they won't call us back, so we don't know.
Yeah.
So, I mean, just with that, so I mean, I don't know if that brings us any closer to kind of giving us direction on this part. So do we want to change the bylaw? Do we want to change the MVP? Do you want to leave it the way it is?
Well, thank you. I'm not against the solar power, but I've got guys in my district that says where it's hard to get primary issue land. Taking it away, you can't bring it back again. So they would like it in the different, they're not against it, but it's still different.
So, Hillary, I don't quite understand now. Now that they've been approved, what is the next step in the county? Like, 'cause
Okay.
you obviously, they have to come back to
Yes.
here,
They do.
so.
So specifically to that Coaldale project, so what has to happen, and I've talked to them about that, they have to come back with a rezoning. They have to first come back with a waiver of the requirements of the land use bylaw for the 18 months. Then they have to come back with a rezoning application, and then they do a development permit. Because they have to bring it in, they can't just apply for a development permit because it doesn't comply with the bylaw. And you can't make the development authority go against what the regulations are. So council has to actually change something. That's just, there's no way around that because we have obligations under the Municipal Government Act too. So it's a very complicated process.
Sounds like it is, Tracy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Hillary, so just further to that question, council still has to go through the process, but they can't defeat the process? They have to go, is that how I'm hearing
No,
it?
they can.
But
Oh, yeah.
eventually they have to approve it, yes? Is that what I'm hearing? Sorry?
Well, that's what I mean, Tracy, it's complicated. No, it is.
Yeah.
County council could technically defeat it, and then it goes to the municipal government board.
Oh, okay, thank you.
That's how it's the other way.
Okay.
Steve?
Yeah, the way it says in the work is that municipalities are obliged to issue a permit and zoning to conform with the AUC decision. However, if you're elected officials, it's your prerogative, they can't tell you how to vote on it, so you can choose not to support that and defeat it and not give the zoning or the development permit. And if that's the case, then they have the right to appeal to the municipal government board and go to the province as an appeal item. That's how the process.
So if you really wanted to just, to say, you know, we don't support this fundamentally from the county's perspective, if that was your perspective, then you could say no, and then they could take it to the municipal government board, and then it's out of your hands completely. Then the province makes the decision.
So, I'm sorry to be a little.
No, that's fine.
honest. So then, does that mean that because they were approved, that they are allowed to build where they wanted to? Or is that
Yes.
something we can direct still?
No, they
They get to build where they wanted to build?
yeah,
Oh.
yeah, that's the
Okay.
problem, right?
Steve?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple questions. Does the AUC fall under a ministry? And two, was the neighbors notified of AUC's decision?
Yes, they would have been somewhat notified of the decision. We know that the landowners actually withdrew their objections through the AUC application, so they came to some kind of compromise on that. Yeah, all of them. So but I mean, what that means, I don't know. They don't let us know those specific details. They just say that their objection was withdrawn. And they would have been notified the same way we were notified in an email, a very generic email that was approved, so. And the AUC doesn't follow under a specific, they're like the NRCD. They're exempt from some sections of the municipal government.
Yeah.
Oh, no, that's what she answered.
But they're still under a certain umbrella, because like the NRCB is still under AOPA.
They're
So you still fall under a certain ministerial. So that is probably the same case with the AUB.
Yes, they still have to follow provincial regulations, and that's why we're concerned that they're not following their policies and regulations of the South Saskatchewan Regional Plan, which they are obliged to actually follow, and at least consider on. So that's something that we've been discussing internally.
So in theory, then, they could be under more than one ministry.
Do you know, Steve, if they're under a specific ministry?
Yeah, they could easily be.
Yeah,
Yeah, because it's part environment, part energy.
yeah,
part-
so you're right, they're probably there's cross-ministerial.
Yeah.
Do you know how much weight, if it was turned down here and then went to the municipal government board, has anything else like this happened and gone through to a municipal government board? And what was the outcome?
Not that I'm aware of. This could be, you know, if council decided that, you know, they there's some principles that need to be followed and they chose not to approve a rezoning and it went to the municipal government board, they would, I don't know how that process would work out. I'm sure the county would have an opportunity to actually speak and be heard at the provincial level.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Steve, thank you. Riveting. Thank you very much. But in all seriousness, though, thank you. We appreciate the background and a little bit of insight. I think, you know, just speaking to the Colel example, you know, I voiced my concerns and objections as regarded to that particular project. But as Hillary's mentioned, you know, there's obviously some bigger wheels turning here. And I think following that discussion and what happened, I think we were also faced some criticism for having a closed for business sign or a perception that we weren't open to the idea. So I think it is important that we try and, I think it's, you know, chicken and egg, we're gonna be forced into this one way or the other. So if we can maybe try and, at least try and do the best we can for what we as a county think is the best direction forward. So just from what the recommendations here and from what Steve has in his background, right, I would support something along the lines of number 5 on page 114, the combination of the 3 and 4. I think we can't just maintain the status quo because, you know, no matter what we want, there's gonna be decisions made above us that are gonna force our hand. So I would be in support of something along the lines of number 5 there, where we have a combination of 3 and 4 where we cap the number of acres, but also we open the door for the possibility of moving forward. And I guess just one thing that kind of bothered me at the time, and reading this again, it kind of bothers me a little bit. It's just on page 113, middle part of the background there, where the siting criteria has posed a problem for solar companies. I guess I see my role, I'm responsible to the ratepayers, and to say that it poses a problem for the solar companies, I guess I struggle with that a little bit, just because I'm more concerned with our residents and how it fits. Not only the negative concerns, but the positive side of things where this could generate revenue. So just from Steve's background here, like there are opportunities where to create a larger solar facility in maybe an area where some less desirable land, build their own substation. So just to say that, you know, it poses a problem, I guess that kind of irks me a little bit, because it has to be a two-way street. We can't just be bending towards their needs. It has to work for both sides. Thank you.
Go ahead, sorry.
Thank you, Councillor Tori Campbell, through the chair. If that is the preferred option, and discussion can carry on, what I would do is I would work on drafting a bylaw amendment to both the municipal development plan and also to the land use bylaw, and bringing that to council for probably either the second meeting in August or the first one in September, just in terms of timeframes.
Steve?
And just as an antidote to Councillor Campbell's comments, yeah, it's, the siting criteria is probably more of an issue for the smaller solar farms, or those ones that are having a subsidy, or grant in order to operate. A larger one, the site is not as critical. As just an example, there's a forthcoming proposal in Vulcan County on 4,000 acres. It's dry land, not irrigated land. There's mostly pasture and dry land. But that project's so large that they're building their own substation. This is up by Traverse. So they're not tied to where the substation actually is. And if there's good irrigated ground down there, they're going to put in their own substation because it's such a large operate. So there's that cost and scale factor involved, right? So it's mostly these smaller guys or some of the ones who got the provincial grant. Their margins are slimmer, I guess, is that this is more critical, but they got to be close to that 1 or 2 miles to the substation.
Bob, did you have a question?
Yes, well, but not question, but if we are doing a bylaw for a new bylaw, I'd like it to be a certain distance away from houses too, because, you know, this.
Go ahead.
So, Councillor Horvath, through the chair, we would probably keep some of the criteria in the land use bylaw, so that if this is the process to go through, all we would really do is we'd be removing the size restriction, and then we would have that same regulatory framework for county council to include in a direct control. So I think, you know, there would definitely be those, we wouldn't just wipe the slate clean and say, yeah, whatever you want, wherever you want. We would still try to work with, obviously, council and be cognizant of landowners and developments that these things are appropriately being located. So there still would be siting criteria, we would just modify it, so that we would have that flexibility. So, yeah.
Any other questions or discussion? If not, we could use a motion. Laws?
Yeah, okay, I would like to, kind of incorporate, in that motion a little bit, the number 5, what Tori suggested here. And maybe we can incorporate that in the motion that we have here. That would probably work, because that administration works with something to provide increased development and opportunities.
Any further discussion? Steve?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is there some kind of public consultation that we could do, whether now or soon, whether it be a survey or just to get the public's ideas on what they would like to see and not to see?
Yes, Councillor Campbell, through the chair, what we would be obliged to do, and regardless, is that we would have to have a public process, but we could be a bit more robust in our public process in terms of maybe getting something out prior to actually drafting something, is to try and get some feedback from the general public first, and then draft a bylaw, and then have a public hearing. So there are definitely multiple ways that we can ramp up our public consultation and not just present them with something, but actually try and get them to be involved at the front end too. So I can work with Steve Hardy on that and do that. So I think that's a great idea.
Okay, any other discussion? Any other questions? We'll call the question then. Those in favor? Those opposed? Carried.
Great, thank you very much. That was very
Thank you.
helpful. Thanks, Julie.
I guess it's lunchtime. Who wants to move that?
Move to.
Those in favor? Those opposed? Oh, we gotta go.
It's gotta be unanimous.
Go ahead. Thank you. Okay, corporate services.
Tracy, you're up.
119 to 120. Bylaw 19-024, utility rate, June 19.
Okay, Jennifer was gonna come and, I texted her already. She's working right now. Oh, she's coming. She wanted to present these, she put them forward, so. Sorry, I didn't realize I'd stepped out for a break for a second, and I didn't realize when we finished her report.
Fast things happen around here, right?
Yeah, that was really fast when I didn't. Sorry, Jen, I didn't realize we were down to Lori's room already. It's not in line, I didn't watch it.
I just have to get organized. Bylaw 1924, I guess. Sorry, I wasn't quite ready when Tracy texted me there. So I'm bringing forward actually 2 bylaws. So bylaw, utility rate bylaw, and the schedule of fees. So the utility rate bylaw is first. This will be changed from, I think it was 1902 to 1924. Basically, all we're doing is with the transfer of the Lethbridge Airport to the city effective July 1st. We want to remove any airport-related items from the utility bylaw, since we'll no longer be charging utilities there. So June 30th will be the last date in which we invoice the city for any related utilities for the users out there, and we're just going to remove the fees from the bylaw.
So what happens to the truck bill?
So Tracy and I have met with the city a couple times, and we're meeting with them again on Monday, and we're gonna have basically lease that land space from them, because the truck fill is ours, is the county's. So we're just gonna rent the land that it sits on from the airport. But at a hopefully nominal rate. We haven't sorted out the details yet.
Right, and the county will continue to operate the truck fill?
Yes.
To its customers, just as we do today, so.
Okay.
So I'm just requesting all 3 readings of the utility rate bylaw 19-024, and the amendments as per the agenda are just to have the airport rates removed. That's the only changes.
Tori?
I'd move first reading of 19-024.
Discussion? Call for the question, those in favor? Opposed, carried. Second, Bob,
Yes. Approve second reading.
any discussion? Call for the question, those in favor? Opposed, carried. Consider third,
Move so.
Morris. Any discussion? Call for the question, all those in favor? Opposed, carried. And third reading. Any discussion? Call for the question, all those in favor? Opposed, carried. Thank you.
Okay. So the next item there is bylaw, what will be bylaw 19-025. So this is a schedule of fees. As council's aware, the schedule of fees is adopted generally now in January of each year based on, a lot of the fees are based on the budget that's just been approved. So within the schedule of fees, there are several fees for the airport. So there's different landing fees, parking fees, terminal fees, etc. in there. So amendments we have made, again, with the transfer of the airport to the city, is just to have all of those airport-related fees removed from the schedule of fees moving forward, effective July 1. Just, again, asking for all three readings of the amended bylaw.
Okay, any questions? Who's making first? Steve?
I'll move first reading of bylaw 19-025.
Any discussion? Call for the question, those in favor? Opposed, carried. Second. Ken? Any discussion? Call for the question, those in favor? Opposed, carried. And consider third. Bob? Any discussion? Call the question, those in favor? Opposed, carried. Third reading. Pause. Any discussion? Seeing none, call the question, those in favor? Opposed, carried. Thank you.
Okay, I have one more item here. I believe it's on page 125 of your package. So this is with regards to Lethbridge Biogas. I know I've been forward with a request from them for, I think it's been 6 years now, basically to continue with the tax payment agreement that they have. They have been consistent in their payments always. They've never been late, and they've fulfilled all of the agreement terms. Speaking with Stefan, is who I've been dealing with on behalf of Lethbridge Biogas, this should be the last deferred tax payment agreement that they'll have with us. They anticipate that by July of 2020, they'll be at a $0 and they'll be able to sign up for the TIP program, which was ultimately what we have been working towards since the initial agreement was signed. It's just I think taken a couple years longer. They had a couple rough years there with energy rates, etc. But as per his letter here, it does seem like the economic conditions are improving, which is helpful for them. So it would be basically the same agreement we've had in the past. What we do is adjust the payments and increase them. So by the time they get to July, they'll have a $0 balance on their 2020 tax roll, which will allow them to sign up for the TIP program, and they won't have to come forward with any further agreements in the future. The one thing just to remind council, with the agreement, it does also mean that no penalties are applied to their account during the period, as long as they meet the terms and conditions of the agreement. There's no tax penalties levied, as long as they meet the terms of the agreement.
Okay. Yeah, Steve, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What is the TIP program short for? Just a wording.
Oh, pardon me, I apologize to Councilor Campbell through the chair. TIP is what I've historically called it, which is the Tax Installment Payment Program. I believe we're calling it Kennedy, and I came up with the acronym TAP, which is, Tax Auto Pay Program. So, excuse me, I should have been referring to it the other way, but TIP is just what I'm used to paying.
I figured it was something like that, I just
Yeah.
didn't know what the.
I apologize.
That's okay.
Any other questions? Could use the motion then. Pause.
I move that county council authorize administration to sign a deferred tax payment agreement based upon the monthly payment calculation for Lethbridge Biogas for the period of June 19 to July 2020.
Any discussion? Any questions? Seeing none, those in favor? Those opposed? Carried.
Thank you. Thanks, Jen.
Yeah, very good. So, we might as well fix that now. So, you go for it.
Okay, this is the motion for Nobleford, we just need a more specific motion, so I'll read it. Move that Lethbridge County Council support the Nobleford sewage lagoon system and give their consent for the town of Nobleford to purchase adjacent land that is located in Lethbridge County.
Like to move on to.
Well, if you're comfortable with it, I don't know if we actually need to move it. We can just alter the motion, because it's already been voted on. Is that okay, Larry?
Sure, I mean, this, Mr. Chairman, in my view, would make it really explicit what we're going to do. Normally, we would get a letter from them, we would draft up a short report and bring a report to council, but to expedite it, you know, maybe just verbally, the way we're going today, if council's on board, then.
I mentioned, we don't need to make it another motion, we can just kind of amend the other one and not have to worry about it, because we already voted on it.
Sure, yeah, I think that would work too, either way.
Friendly amendment.
Okay.
Most has stayed, or how's that?
Okay,
Okay, we're good?
good.
Good, thank you.
So, next we will move to councilors' reports. So, on May the 2nd, we had council, May the 3rd, Harrison Reeves and the Lethbridge County Safety Breakfast in the morning. And Wednesdays, Ann and I meet every Wednesday now from here on out, just to keep things up to speed and rolling from each other. And so that's every Wednesday of every month. And, May the 2nd, we had coffee with council. Was kind of surprised at the turnout we actually had. Was better than our AGM supposedly we used to have when one or maybe two people might show up. Irrigation workshop, move forward. The last one was a little disappointing in the number of people who actually came, but I guess we're getting somewhere there. May the 22nd was the CAO meeting, the Lethbridge Airport final meeting for the joint committee between Lethbridge and County. May the 27th, we had the open house for the Vulcan and the Lethbridge County, and went to the FCM conference, May the 30th to June the 2nd. We had an opportunity to meet with the Deputy Minister of Western Economic Diversification.
Rural economic development.
Oh, rural economic development, okay. I thought the meeting went well. I think everybody in the place asked the same question. And that was about broadband and other than that, I think it was a pretty good conference. Very interesting old city. Was kind of amazed at the study tour we went on about the garbage, where they actually burn all their garbage, and absolutely everything that goes in the garbage pile gets burnt, or everything goes in the pit and is incinerated, even a propane tank, they said, which I just thought was, well, really, but it was very interesting anyway, so I think that's my report. Thank you.
Okay, on May the 3rd, we had the safety breakfast, May 16th, was council meeting. May 30th, the UTEC MCF. How come I only went to one council meeting?
That's all that was on the timesheet. That's all that was on the timesheet.
You can get paid for it now.
thank you. May 2nd, council meeting. May 7th, coffee with council, as the Reeve indicated. I think it was I was a little bit surprised at the turnout. I guess I had a little bar and it was good. Got to hear some things that, some new, some old. 16th, council meeting, and then I also attended the FCM conference in Quebec City. I thought it was my first time at FCM. I thought it was a great conference, a great opportunity to talk to some people from as far away as, right on the ocean on the East Coast, to some people from BC, and got to spend some time with a couple of councillors from across the street and kind of make a connection there. So I thought it was a great opportunity to learn some new things, and as Lauren said, to see a couple great tours as well.
May 1st started the month with Exhibition Park meeting. May 2nd, council meeting. The 7th was coffee with council. May 8th, we had a Pitcher Butte IDP committee meeting. 16th, council meeting. May 22nd, Community Futures. 23rd, Lethbridge County and Pitcher Butte Intermunicipal Development Plan meeting. 27th, attended the Lethbridge County, Vulcan County IDP open house. And the 28th had an Exhibition Park committee meeting. And with the Exolution project that we just had a presentation from the Exhibition Park, the board has been quite busier with a lot of committee meetings, just planning for things going forward there with the project.
Okay, May 2nd council meeting, and then May 3rd council safety breakfast meeting, May 3rd highway twinning meeting, May 7th coffee with the council, and then the 8th the Coldell Chamber of Commerce meeting, May 15th South Grove meeting, May 16th council meeting, 27th Lethbridge County and Vulcan County IDP meeting, and then the 30th I went to university graduation ceremony. And then the Chancellor's reception.
May the 2nd council meeting, May the 6th. What happened May the 6th? Oh, MLA meeting, that was a good meeting. May the 6th, North County Potable Water meeting, I went to, yes. May the 7th, coffee with council. It was a different concept from what we used to have. It looked like that's maybe the right direction to go. May the 8th, Pitcher Butte IDP committee meeting. May the 10th, we went to the irrigation workshop. May the 16th, I believe, council meeting, yes. May the 23rd, Lethbridge County and Town of Pitcher Butte IDP meeting again. May the 27th, Lethbridge County and, well, don't move that on me. Now I gotta refocus again. May the 27th, Lethbridge County and Vulcan County IDP meeting, and May the 30th, went to the FCM, and what I liked about the FCM, there was really good topics down there. They had quite an agriculture section this time there too. It was mostly presentations by the supply management groups. And the other one, what I did like about the FCM, Alberta had the biggest delegation there. And it was somewhat kept quiet, but I think that might have been, and you guys probably know, a lot of them wore t-shirts, and the t-shirts had big bold lettering on it, and it said, "The world needs energy." And so it was well, I thought it was well received by a lot of people, but they didn't want to talk about it because it might rock the boat. And then the other one I went to is, I went to the Pitcher Butte High School graduation and give greetings on behalf of county and council over down there. And that's mine.
May 2nd, council meeting. May 3rd, we had safety breakfast in Pitcher Butte. May 7th, we had the coffee with council, and May 8th, Pitcher Butte IDP committee meeting.
23rd, Lethbridge County and Town of Pictured IDP. And then May 24th, Southern Alberta Energy from Waste Committee, and that was the AGM there. And May 27th, we had the Lethbridge County and Falcon County IDP openers. And thanks Morris for going to Pictured.
Who was making the motion to, pause? Any discussion? Call for the question, those in favor? Opposed? I do believe that's it. Call to adjourn.